Hi everyone, my name is Ben Busse. I'm the head of product at DreamFactory, and in this short screencast I'm going to introduce DreamFactory Enterprise and tell everybody what it's all about. So let's get started. First of all, what is DreamFactory Enterprise? So DreamFactory Enterprise is a management platform for managing DreamFactory instances across your development lifecycle. So DreamFactory instances, by that we mean instances of the open source project that you may be familiar with today, that we have on our website. You can get it on GitHub, Bitnami, and so forth. So this product is for actually managing those instances across development, across test, across production. And it has a number of core capabilities. So the first one, and we'll show this in a demo, is instance management. So by that we mean the ability to provision instances on shared infrastructure, also known as multi-tenancy. The second thing is the ability to manage the admins, both the admins of the system of Enterprise itself, so we call those systems administrators, and the administrators of the open source product. So for those of you familiar with DreamFactory open source, there are administrators in there, and Enterprise lets you manage those administrators. So this is really important for a number of use cases, including enterprise deployments, where security is paramount. The product also includes a number of great security and governance features, specifically API limits, so very lightweight but powerful features around limiting or throttling the APIs that come through the system. And then lastly, it comes with very comprehensive API reporting, and there we use Elasticsearch, Logstash, and Kibana, or called the ELK stack, and I'll give a quick overview of that in the product demo. So here's a quick diagram just to make sure that people get the idea. On the right-hand side are DreamFactory instances. So this is the open source product. There's the LAMP stack software distro, and those are managed by DreamFactory Enterprise, the product on the left. DreamFactory Enterprise is also a LAMP stack install, but it's a separate software distribution that is not open source. So the right-hand side, open source, the left-hand side, not open source. DreamFactory Enterprise manages the open source product. So it has a bunch of capabilities. It has a console, which we'll look at today a little bit. It has a bunch of command line capabilities as well. So you can manage provisioning of instances from the command line or from the browser. So subsystem-wise, it has API limits, as mentioned, usage reporting, which requires installation of the ELK stack, multi-tenancy, so this is the ability to namespace servers and clusters and actually provision DreamFactory open source runtime instances on a shared cluster. And then lastly, we mentioned administrative management. So super admins are able to administer administrators of the open source product. Hopefully that makes sense. So who's it built for? So there are a number of use cases where it's very powerful. The self-evident one is enterprises, so companies that are deploying DreamFactory open source need a lot of control and governance, especially from IT. So DreamFactory Enterprise is built for that purpose. Any systems integrators who are building software, they need sandboxes, they want to prototype quickly, and then they ultimately want to deploy to their customer's production instance, can leverage DreamFactory Enterprise in that way for both development, QA, and ultimately production deployments to their customers. Software vendors, i.e. ISVs, so any company that's exposing parts of their system as APIs, especially to third-party developers, can really leverage DreamFactory Enterprise. Managed service providers and cloud vendors, so MSPs and infrastructure as a service. Any company that is building backend as a service, aka BaaS, or has developer-facing strategy with getting developers to actually use their cloud platform, DreamFactory Enterprise is a great fit for that as well. So with that, hopefully that's a good overview, and now we'll jump into a quick 3 or 4 minute demo. Okay, so here we are in the DreamFactory Enterprise demo, and I'm quickly going to walk through how you provision instances, how you set up servers and clusters, a little bit about user management, and I'll talk briefly about API limits and reporting. So very quick demo, but hopefully we'll give everyone a good overview of the product. So here I am in the browser-based console. So this is me as a systems administrator. I've installed the product. I have it up and running in my environment, and now I'm going to go accomplish some deployment tasks. have a development team. We have development, test, and production servers, and I want to get DreamFactory up and running on those servers really easily, and that's what I'm going to use Enterprise to do. So the first thing from provisioning perspective is you can think of DreamFactory as a multi-tenant instance visor, where instance is an instance of DreamFactory, the open source product that's running on some servers. So the ingredients are really twofold. You have to namespace servers, so set up the logical mapping of servers. These servers can be running really anywhere in the cloud, public or private, and then set up the set of servers that run on a cluster. And Enterprise needs to know about these clusters because it needs to know the destination where it can programmatically create instances, multi-tenant instances that share computing resources. So to do that, you simply set up some servers. So get them up and running, spin them up in an environment, enter a server name, host, and select the type of server. And that will provide a manifest by which you can then set up clusters. And clusters are essentially just a DNS subdomain and a stack of web, app, and database servers upon which DreamFactory Open Source is going to run. So once you have that all set up, of course you can have as many clusters as you want. You can isolate customers, you can set up different development groups. There's many ways that you can slice and dice how you provision your computing infrastructure. Once you have those set up, then you can deploy instances on those clusters, and that is, the notion is multi-tenancy. So you have many instances running on a single cluster at a time. So here I'm looking at a cluster called Cluster Fabric, and it has a bunch of instances here with various names that we're using for testing. You can do all of this from the command line as mentioned here. This is really a read-only view, so you have an idea of where these instances are running on which clusters. So that's kind of the key idea. Once you've deployed your instances, you have this whole user management capability at your disposal. So you've got two different key roles. You have systems administrators. So these are the folks that have credentials into this system that I'm showing here in the demo. And then you have instance owners. And instance owners can be anything from third-party developers that are using instances. They could be developers within your company. They could be customers that are actually consuming or using applications that are running on DreamFactory. And those customers may not even know that DreamFactory exists. This is the mechanism by which you manage the DreamFactory runtime. So this is the UI where you manage both sysadmins and instance owners. The next thing I will quickly show is limits. So what this is the ability to impose API limits. So you can think of this as lightweight API management. You can have limits at various levels. You can have them at the cluster level, the instance level, and the user level. And setting them up is very simple. So I could go here and say, okay, for this particular cluster fabric, select a period of time, say for example, a minute, and I can impose a limit of say 10,000 API calls per minute. Make that active and create it. And then the open source product will then honor that rule at runtime. And you can configure these as mentioned in various ways. So you can pick, for example, a particular cluster, then an instance, then a user. That can be a named user or generic, i.e. every end user hitting the instance can be throttled at a certain level of API calls. So the last thing I'll quickly show is reporting. So an optional installation, highly recommended, is the Elk stack. So this is Elasticsearch, Logstash, and a product called Kibana. And here you have different reporting views. You can look at API calls at the cluster level for particular instance owners and down to the instance level. So you can look at actual endpoints in an instance, the applications that are running in that instance, as well as the users, i.e. end users that are hitting the API. So you can understand the usage of your applications vis-a-vis API calls. Quick example of how this works, pretty straightforward. For example, you can pick a cluster, maybe pick a date range. I want a custom date range, say, for some period of time. I'll pick one, July 15th. Maybe I want to look at like a 30-day period, and I can submit that, and then that's going to query the Logstash logs and generate essentially a time series of API calls. So this legend represents the particular instances that are running on this server cluster. and then you can drill down, and there are a lot of out-of-the-box features. You can look at the data, you can look at all the API calls, and of course you can export out this data. I will also mention that the underlying Elk stack is obviously all reportable for custom reporting, so it comes with a REST API itself. So this provides some good dashboard capabilities for high-level operational stats or marketing analytics, but then of course you can do custom reporting as well. So that is a quick demo. Hopefully that's helpful. Okay, so that wraps up our quick demo of DreamFactory Enterprise. So go ahead, if you're interested, and try it out yourself. You can go to that URL, dreamfactory.com/how-install DreamFactory Enterprise. Provides a bunch of installation instructions with all the details. You can spin it up on a Linux server and give it a go. You can also reach out anytime and contact us for a product demo. Email there, dsbsales@dreamfactory.com, and we can do a deeper dive into it with your team. So thank you very much. Hopefully this was helpful, and please give it a try. Thanks.